Hey guys, CDTVThaG here, and the G of course stands for God-awful Photoshop. Whose mans edited this cover? The kids don't even look real. Now, I'm not saying I'm a master of Photoshop or anything, but I also don't have millions of dollars and a record label behind me, so there's that. But regardless, today we're going to be reacting to Today I'm going to be reacting to Father of Four, which is the new album by Offset. This is the solo album from the Migos that I'm the most excited for. I think Quavo's album was not great at all. Takeoff's album was decent, but he's just not equipped to carry a solo project with so few features. And the reaction to Takeoff's album is up on this channel if you want to check it out after this one. But this one I'm kind of excited for because even though it is 16 tracks long, which is still a little bit too long for a solo Migos project, Offset seems like he knows what he's doing here. There's a lot of features. Of course, there's one from Gunna, because which album doesn't have a feature from Gunna now? And he's also said that there's going to be a lot more of a focus on personal content on this album, rather than just the materialistic stuff that he usually raps about within the Migos. I don't know if he's going to stay true to that. Obviously, there's going to be at least some tracks on here where he's just flexing a little bit, and that's fine. But hopefully, he's telling the truth, and there's a lot more content on this album than we're used to hearing from him. Because that would make this album stand out. That would give me faith that Offset could actually stand on his own as a solo artist, because Quavo and Takeoff, they haven't done that for me. Their albums were basically Migos albums without the other two members. So I hope this isn't the same as that. So with all that being said, let's just jump into this one. It's sounding promising, but let's see what the music sounds like. So first track, we have Father of Four featuring Big Rube. Big Rube with that lovely deep-ass voice. Really soft production to open this up.
What you hear is part of me, but there's so much more to me. A son, a brother, a husband, a father, but still can go even farther.
This is setting up the album nicely. We might be getting something deep from Offset here. Okay.
I was 17 years old when I had you.
Okay.
Jordan, sorry, I wasn't there for all your birthdays. I tried to hit and I wasn't rich, I had no workplace.
Oh, yo. I know the track is literally just started and the album is literally just started, but I'm liking Offset on this more kind of sentimental sound. Here he's talking about one of his kids, his kid named Jordan, apparently. He said that on the hook. Just talks about the times that he wasn't there for him, and Offset sounds really good over this kind of slow, dramatic, emotional beat. I know it's literally just been an intro from Big Rube and a chorus, but I'm starting to build up some excitement for this, man.
Kalia, you my first daughter. I missed the first years of your life, I'm sorry.
He missed a lot, apparently, goddamn.
Really know if I was your father. I'ma put the money up for y'all, I can't be selfish.
Nice, nice.
Remember, I ain't had no dough. Spend a big bag on clothes. Gucci from the head to toes.
Right. Bring it back, bring it back. Okay, we don't need to hear about buying loads of Gucci clothes. It does kind of fit in thematically, because he's talking about, you know, I'm a father of four and I want to provide for my kids, and I used to be broke. I had to, like, rob to feed my family. But, just bring it back, okay? We were doing well without the spend a big bag on clothes, Gucci from the head to the toes.
Culture, gotta protect her from the world, I can't even post her.
You're talking about your newborn here, Culture, and you're saying, got to protect her from the world, I can't even post her. Makes sense, nice line, good sentiment to it, but you'll use a video of Cardi B giving birth to her as a trailer for the album. And she's on the album cover, so doesn't that technically count as posting her? He's like a perfect middle ground between Quavo and Takeoff. He has the flowing talent of Takeoff, and he still has that commercial appeal of Quavo. He's the perfect middle ground. Brilliant opener. Brilliant opening track. I love that. And yeah, he's not lying. Honestly, I was kind of curious as to what Offset's definition of content would be, but this is a very good start. If this is indicative of what the rest of the album is going to sound like, I'm looking forward to it. That's good, because this makes, the thing is, that makes this album stand out from a Migos album, if this continues the whole way throughout it. Because that was the problem with Takeoff and Quavo's projects for me. I'm not going to keep bringing them up, but just at the start here, so you know where I stand with all of them, those just sounded like way too similar to the Migos projects to stand on their own as solo albums. I think what Offset is doing here is he's setting this up perfectly to stand on its own. So I hope this continues. So track number 2, this one is looking interesting. It's called How Did I Get Here, and it has a feature from the man himself, Jumpman Cole. That is, of course, what the J stands for.
Where I go? How did I get here?
This production has Metro Boomin written all over it.
Felt like I was born on Mars. Everybody staring too hard. They didn't really think I was a star. Then I fucked around, beat the odds. Yeah, ain't no coming back. How I made it out the jungle, yeah, without a scratch.
So this song so far, I mean, it's not a bad song, but I'm just not really feeling it. It just feels like it's just kind of coasting along. There's nothing really too stand out about it. And I like dark, bassy beats, but this one, it doesn't feel like there's anything that special about it. And Offset's not coming through with anything too crazy either.
Baptized at First Baptist Church, the pastor name was Reverend Johnson. Chastised his shirt, he matched shoes, but had the front and never bothered him. Dirty South with bodies piling up so high they blocked the birds and rerouted them. Plenty murders had observers, but you never heard a peep out of them. Back when I stared at the phone as I'm letting it ring, another collector.
Okay, Cole's coming through with some energy here. Yeah, I don't know if this is a track I'm gonna revisit a whole lot. The J. Cole verse was really cool on there. He definitely came through with a bit more of a passionate sound here, I guess, than Offset did. So his verse was really attention grabbing from the first bar, but overall as a song, it was very low-key. It did have this ominous and eerie sound to it, which is cool, but I just don't necessarily think it worked here. The title pretty much explains everything this track is about. I started from a dark place, so how did I get here to where I am now? Alright, up next, we have track number 3, which is titled Lick.
I took a couple of my dogs on a lick. Do or die, survive, pay the rent.
Oh, I just have to mention this real quick. The drums on this, they really remind me of a Ric Flair drip in a way. They have a really like similar kind of bounce to them. It just really helps add a nice swing to the sound of the track.
Living in the street, concrete, get rough street. Nigga try to creep, we eat gun bust. Trying not to be political, do a real deal. Remember I was in the middle school with a fit or two. I was kicking in the back of doors, but I know better. You expose what you know, then you go get it. So what you read, sleeping on my feet. Trust fund for my daughter's son, that ain't plan I see.
Okay, that was another pretty good track. Offset basically just made a banger that had some content there. The song was pretty much, it kind of expanded on what he talked about in the intro track, where he said he pretty much did anything he could to make money to feed his family. That's what this whole song was about, essentially. Again, you know, we got to hear a little bit about his childhood, how he was raised, and how that kind of pushed him into a life of crime to just try and make money for his family. We've heard like some of this stuff before from Offset, but we're definitely getting to learn at least a little bit more about him, which is really cool. And again, like I said, there was some good lyrics on the track, but also just had a great beat as well. Really catchy hook. Everything was pretty good on there. Pretty good track. So up next we have track number 4, which is called Tats On My Face. Oh, really dark production on this one.
Look in his eyes, he hate me. Feeling your vibe is safe. I feel you. Cody survivor patient. 2 million stash in the basement. I'm popping shit like a toilet bowl. My little boy Jim made the
I'm gonna give you a pass for that one, Offset. Actually, no, I'm not. I'm popping shit like a toilet bowl? Does a toilet bowl pop shit?
I am a bomb, nuclear nuke. Been taking 300 Richard Mill too. I was 18, I was robbing for 2.
That track reminded me a lot of How Did I Get Here. I just thought there was nothing really that special about this track. It just sounded like a very passable Offset song. Again, there's a way to make like dark minimalistic beats work, but I just don't think this was it. There was nothing like interesting about this track. The thing is, when it's an Offset solo album, I expect him to like try a lot of different things. And sure, it's cool if he has like some tracks that sound like his usual style on here, that's to be expected, but I just want something that's a bit more different and varied than this. There's nothing that makes me want to come back to this track. Pretty standard lyrics, and at this point in the album, it's actually kind of almost getting repetitive how much he mentions that he was robbing when he was younger to feed his family as well as himself. Here he has a line where he says, I was 18, I was robbing for 2. That's what the whole last track was about. He mentioned it on the first track as well. I know he said there'd be more content on this album, and I appreciate that, but hopefully it's not all just the same content over and over and over again. Up next, track number 5, we have Made Men, which I believe already exists as a Migos song. What are you doing, Offset? Why are you naming this after something that already exists from your group?
Richard Mill biting in it like a damn. Let me get the truck in the good stand. Oh, we got smoke, pay 100 band. Young rich nigga, I'm a made man. Bitch, money nigga, let it walk, can talk. Pat it with the frost, cost.
There's the first one, ladies and gentlemen. Add 1 to the Patek counter. I forgot to mention we're gonna have a Patek counter in this video, and there's the first one.
Started 10 band when I'm coming up. Remember when I cashed on the Bentley truck? Big boy pack, and I know they hate.
One more, another one on the Patek counter.
They don't care about the image. I'm 17 with a 15-year sentence. When he jumping at the pen, I'ma give a whole million.
Okay, I'm slowly starting to lose a little bit of faith in this album because, again, this was another track that just sounded very, very typical to me. Why make the solo album if you're not going to do anything different from what you typically do with your group? Yeah, just everything about this was just such typical Migos / Offset stuff. The only track that I've loved so far is the intro, Father of Four, and Lick was pretty good, but so far we're 5 tracks in and 3 of them haven't really pulled me in. Hopefully we can pick it up. I'm not sure if we're going to, because track number 6, it has a Gunna feature. Let's just say it's very rare that I like Gunna. Track number 6, Wild Wild West, featuring Gunna. Alright, this sounds alright. Got some like reversed kind of sounds on the beat.
Wild Wild West. And I put the cooling on the tip. Shawty gon' molest me.
She's gonna molest you, Offset.
Yeah, they look like water out that sea. Blade brain turn into a sunroof.
Oh, that line was kind of hard. Blow your brains, turn you to a sunroof. That's just some gory imagery. Nice wordplay there.
Put her in a rubber, fuck her in a fashion nova. Biggest in the AV, and it's cold like Minnesota. Double let the dough, she put a 4 up in the soda. Trying to get this yola while the devil on my shoulder.
Come on, Gunna. Give me one of those rare, good Gunna verses. I done put my balls in the hole like golf. Best thing about that track was definitely the instrumental. I like how it was produced. Here's what I think my issue might be. Maybe what's hitting me right now is just the oversaturation of Migos music that we've received recently. Like, if you just look at their output in the last like 2 years, it's just been ridiculous. They've been everywhere. Most of the time, even though their flows are cool, they flow in a very noticeable and specific way. And Offset had cool flows on here, but the whole time I was just thinking, I've heard these flows so many times before though. It's a very specific way of flowing. It's that triplet flow. It gets really boring when you've heard it like 30 to 50 times in different songs in the past year, you know? Gunna did pretty much nothing on me. He made me laugh with that line, I done put my balls in the hole like golf. First of all, that sounds extremely uncomfortable. Not even pleasurable, but at the same time it was kind of funny, so I'll commend Gunna for that. Everything in Gunna's verse was so disconnected, like almost none of the lines followed up on each other. Every line was just its own standalone generic rap line. Again, I'm not gonna say the track was bad because I don't think it's trash or anything, but it wasn't enjoyable. Alright, let's hope we pick it up. We have a very interesting feature on the next one, track number 7, which is Northstar featuring CeeLo Green.
I'm running without sleep.
Oh.
Ready to get out of the street. I sit back and watch and see. They plot their enemy. Give me a race.
Those strings on the beat. Oh.
There is no such thing as peace.
There's CeeLo.
But I cannot cry.
Those harmonies.
Acting like I cannot die. 'Cause I've got to burn bright to be the North Star in the dark night sky.
Nice little closeout to that track. That was fairly good, fairly enjoyable. I think it would have been cool if CeeLo's hook was also in between the first and second verse, just to break it up a little bit more. Because what I am noticing is, like, hearing Offset's voice just, like, constantly, like, you know, on a verse and then an interlude or a chorus and then a verse again. I don't know, Offset's voice just wasn't really made to carry whole songs, I guess. His tonality doesn't really shift a whole lot across tracks. CeeLo Green killed it. He has a very like strong voice and it was a nice switch up on the track. Up next, we have track number 8, which is called After Dark. Okay, I like the sound of this beat.
Lightning strike after dark. What's the price? Up the bar.
The production on this is beautiful already, man.
Shit got real just a week ago. My dog got killed just a week ago. The whole city talk when I put the titties out. Watching Mickey Mouse, now you gotta kill him.
Wait, what? The whole city talk when I pull the titties out? I assume Offset's not talking about himself with the bar there.
I get bread by the loaf, by the lamb, by the boat. Cooking up a chicken, watch my hand off with soap.
Again, I think my favourite thing about that track was the production, but I think Offset worked with it fairly well. Like I said, Offset interested me at first, but again, I feel like by the end of the track, the sound of his voice just got old. This album is honestly, it kind of feels a little boring to me so far. So far, it just feels like kind of unnecessary. You know, we don't really need this. And sure, yet again, there is content within the lines, but it's not like it's anything super new. It was one of the better tracks recently, but nothing that I loved yet again. So let's move on to the next one. We have track number 9, which is called Don't Lose Me.
And being a selfish, messed up husband, you know what I'm saying? I'm trying to...
Oh, okay, so this is like talks about, that's his apology to Cardi B right there. Okay, stay away from the chain topic, you were onto something.
Trip a little stain on him, put a little game on him.
That beat's kind of interesting. If you listen, like, in the background, there's like the sound of like a bird kind of chirping that's repeating over and over. Yeah, I just wanted to point that out. That's pretty cool.
Demons in my soul got issues. Water breaking in the price vicious. I'm a genie and I'm grand wishes. She told me don't lose me. Don't lose me. Truth be told, you go. She had a bad at Fleek, it will go.
3 on the Patek counter. Haha, unfortunately at this point, the album is losing me. But no, yeah, I like the topics that he covered. He didn't really go anywhere super interesting with it, but I thought there would have been a lot of ground to cover with his kind of like apology to Cardi B with all the, you know, the cheating stuff going on, but he didn't really take it anywhere like that. I appreciate him trying to cover more topics, but he's not really doing it that well. So let's move on to the next one. Track number 10, Underrated.
When I put on my clothes, niggas got me stupid when I first proposed. Niggas, they been hating, yeah, months ago. On and off, and I sold it on the east. Now I want my dog, cause I'm getting money, and it's different. Type of money that my dog says somebody in it. Begging every bit and fuck it, hit him with the Simmons.
I hate when I'm just sitting here and running out of things to say about the tracks. I will say that there was a bit more life to this one. Offset had more of a presence on this track. But again, it was just one of those super like low-key beats where most of the focus is on the 808s and the drums. And that would be fine. That would be cool if we hadn't heard it so many times before on this album as well. This was just another like Tats On My Face or Made Men style track. Right, I think things might pick up on the next track though. I'm optimistic for this one. We have Legacy featuring Travis Scott and 21 Savage. Oh, that one just kicked straight off.
Your body gon' smell like vomit. I done went bad.
Oh, Travis.
Since I got checks, I don't run and get mad as I react. Talk to myself cause it's only us. Always deep in my mind, don't know who to trust.
I always love Travis. Travis Scott is like, oh, hold up, Offset just came straight into this one, jeez.
Heard that? I was trapping and I had to take a bird bath. Buttons on me, I was going down the wrong path. I'm humble with the money.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, I can feel the money.
That verse from Offset was sick.
Shooters gon' slide in this quiet, ain't no
21, the greatest British rapper.
Lost my brothers to the street, we gon' slide, kill some, go home and shed tears. When it's time to ride, slide. Catch me in the six with a blicky. Need to open up a bunny ranch, cause I got all the bitches, dog. Why you in the car if you ain't gon' shoot? You another witness, dog.
I got famous and rich, now I'm corporate.
Yeah, that track was definitely a lot better. I really enjoyed that one. I think Offset probably came through with one of his best verses on this album. He just exploded straight out the gate, and he actually sounded like he had a lot of passion on that verse there. And I definitely do think that was helped by the fact that this track was broken up a bit more by the features. You know, if that went straight from the hook into Offset's verse, it would still be good. But the fact that it was broken up with a verse from Travis Scott first before we got his, it just made it all the more impactful when he came into the song. Like I said, I love Travis on here. I love Travis on most things. He's pretty much just the auto-tune rapper to me right now. Like, Travis Scott's real voice to me is just auto-tune. But yeah, everyone killed it on here. And 21 Savage had a really good verse as well. I think 21 has improved significantly the past 2 years. Like, his most recent album was pretty great as well. His voice isn't as boring as it used to be. His flows are better. He has funny lines placed in here and there, but with his like deadpan delivery, it just sounds so funny. This was a good song. Track number 12, we have Clout featuring Cardi B.
That was on.
Oh, he just starts straight away on this one too, jumping straight into it.
Weirdo every week. Weirdo. Get the wood, put it up for my seeds. Put it up. No cure for the opportunity. No cure. Anything for clout. They do anything for clout.
Okay, I like the sound of this track actually. The concept is pretty cool. No cure for the IG disease. I feel you, Offset.
Swapping out cars with my bitch. I bought her the limo, she bought me the Wraith.
Back on topic.
Shout it DM me, I'm straight. I'm not gonna bite on the bait. Sipping no toxic waste.
Whole lot of people need to hear this. It's a lot of names on my hit list. Mom still say what he wants to.
is Cardi. Okay, she's sticking to the topic better than Offset did.
Everybody wanna be lit, everybody wanna be rich, everybody wanna be this. If us you all hate me, bitch. Bring my problems and suck my dick.
Do anything for clout. Do anything for clout.
Do anything for clout. That was another pretty damn good track. It's just about people doing anything for clout. The hook is pretty self-explanatory. People who basically talk down on him or diss him for, you know, just for some internet points. So it's a cool concept, but he didn't really stick to it in his verse. He did for like half of it, and then he just kind of gave up and he's like,
oh, by the way, I bought Cardi a car. She bought me a car.
Whereas Cardi stuck with the topic pretty much the whole way through her verse, and I can appreciate that a lot. Plus, I don't like Cardi B's voice when she talks, but Cardi B's voice on tracks, it just sounds pretty powerful. I don't know, she really has a strong presence on tracks, and that showed through here. Alright, we're doing pretty good. 2 tracks that I really enjoyed in a row. Let's continue that. Up next we have a track number 13, which is On Fleek, featuring the man himself, Quavious. Yet again, Takeoff has been left off Father of 4, nowhere to be seen on here. He was also left off of Harvard Dropout, which featured Offset and Quavo. I know those keys anywhere. This has to be a Zaytoven beat. Why can't more of his hooks on here sound like this? Like, there's definitely more variation in his voice here.
Take a flight to Kuwait. Spend a night in Barbados. Put a drink to head Ace of Spades. Hop on a jet, we leave, and she wanna walk on the water like Jesus. Sprinkle on a little bit of seasoning. But get stand together, yeah, they mingling. My baby the baddest, she don't need a carriage. I swear she rock you to sleep. She do multiple things at one time, man. I call her triathlete.
Really like the instrumental on that track. I don't know if Zaytoven produced the whole thing, but he definitely did like the piano keys and stuff on the intro and the outro. He has a very like distinct, noticeable sound to his production. Yeah, I like the chorus that Offset did in here. Quavo's verse was, just like I said in my Harvard Dropout reaction, like Quavo's verses, they're just Quavo verses. There's not going to be much of a big difference between all of them. I swear he's a robot, man. His voice always just sounds so synthetic and all the verses are so similar. Yeah, it was an enjoyable track. It works for what it's going for, but it's not something I'm going to go out of my way to listen to. So we're nearing in on the end of the album. Let's go to track number 14, which is Quarter Milli featuring Gucci Mane.
I made a whole meal off the drill. Bought a rich meal, quarter meal.
Richard Mills, he's mentioning those a hell of a lot as well. You're mentioning a lot of watches. Where is the Pateks, Offset? There it is. 4 on the counter. Really, the biggest alteration between these songs is the instrumental, pretty much. The flows are getting really like noticeably repetitive now. Is it just me, or does Gucci's voice sound a little different on this track? It doesn't sound like his usual delivery to me. I mean, I haven't listened to a whole lot of Gucci, but it feels like he's projecting his voice out a lot more. It sounds kind of interesting. Okay. The Migos sound is done, man. It's so oversaturated. Okay, Mr. Gucci had a very short verse on that track. I kind of like what he came through with. I don't know, Gucci sounded like he was having fun with that verse, and I enjoyed that. As for Offset, again, it's just the same problem I keep having towards the end of this album. It's just the fact that nothing is different enough here for me to look at it and say, okay, it makes sense why he made a solo album, because right now it still doesn't make sense. When he's carrying the majority of a track, I just don't think he can do it. I mean, he could do it, but he's not doing it. And yeah, that's a shame, because he's got some dope production on this project, but I just don't think he's doing that much with it. And the hook on this was so repetitive. Yeah, let's just move on. Track number 15 is the single he released from this project, Red Room. I haven't heard it yet, so let's jump right into it.
How I grew up, my mama with my dad. So when I blew up, I put her in the bag. At the door when I think about the crash. Like the hell when I hit the tree, I smell the gas.
Okay. I didn't know he was in a car crash.
Bitches ain't shit, got exposed by E. So naive, so cold in the street. Sleep on my feet. Money turn homies to zombies to eat. See my grandma in a hearse. And Pistol P gone in a casket. Shots fired, nigga blasting. Cops, they'll ride, start smashing.
Yep, it was a, you know, a decent enough song. I did like the content of this track, to be fair. You know, it's not like he necessarily covered anything new here, except maybe the car crash, which he mentioned in the hook that he was in. And I guess in a way it does kind of represent the album So I can see why, I guess I could see why it was released as a single. Didn't love this one, but yeah, it was decent. It was decent. Let's hope the last track is a good closer, because we opened it very strong. Track number 16, Came a Long Way.
Came a long way from that chopper in the car. When I'm on enough, they treat me like a
okay.
I was kicking dough, never thought of being a star.
Beats like this is similar to earlier tracks, but it just has more to it.
Me and Metro bring the pain and we talk the charts. 3400 Club Drive where we start. Trying to patch the cash through the generations. I've been meditating, pressure what I'm facing. Gotta get this paper, ain't no time for conversation. We settling dough, never thought rapping go far.
Cool little closer to the album there. Again, it was like a topic he'd already covered on this album. You know, lived a life of crime when I was younger, didn't know the rapping would work out, but it did. But like I said, the instrumental on this one had way more of a kick to it. It hit a lot harder. That made the track just significantly better to listen to. Yeah, I think it was a nice closer. Probably definitely one of the better tracks on the album. But let's just dive into my thoughts about the album as a whole, because I guess there's a few things I do have to say about it. Overall, I thought this album was underwhelming from what I expected from Offset. To me, this is probably the best solo album out of the 3 solo albums from the Migos, but it still was unnecessary. We didn't need this. At least I don't think I didn't need this. I didn't need to hear this. To me, this just kind of proves the thought I had in my head that none of the Migos can really work as solo artists, or at least they're not trying enough to work as solo artists, because there was a lot of filler on here. Even though Offset said he'd be covering a lot of content, which he did on certain tracks, it still wasn't a whole lot of ground that he covered. The first track was honestly my favorite one. If I had to pick my favorites, they're like Father of Four, Lick, Legacy, Clout, and Came a Long Way. I'd say those are my favorites. You know, there was other tracks that I kind of liked, but those were my favorites. Yeah, I like the tracks that had a bit more of a different theme to them, a different concept. But even then, I don't know, I just don't feel like Offset really told us that much about his life on this project that we didn't already know. Also, just the flows got so repetitive. Offset's voice got repetitive, his flows got repetitive. This just needed more features or less tracks. It needed one of those two, and it would have worked significantly better, but with 16 tracks, I just don't think Offset can carry it, or he didn't offer enough of a variety of sounds to carry it. If he switches it up a bit more, I think he could do a solo album, but this one, it just wasn't it. There's maybe like 3 or 4 tracks on here that I'm really gonna revisit, but that's not a whole lot on a 16 track album. But let me know what you guys thought of it down in the comments below. I'd be interested to see how many of you agree, how many of you disagree, because I do read through my comments pretty often. Yeah, that's pretty much all I got to say. You can find me on all my social medias under the name CDTV Productions. I share it with my twin, who also has a YouTube channel. Go check that out if you haven't seen it yet. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I will see you all in the next reaction, and this is CDTVThaG, signing out.